I'm John Lame, and welcome to Untapped. We're here to help you create financial success by discovering the wealth within. Hey, it's John. Welcome to my podcast today, and I am revved up. We're going to talk about 1099 Nation, and this is pretty exciting to watch. This will be just an incredible change that comes into our economy over the next few years. And let me set the stage for just a couple of minutes. So this morning, I found a pretty interesting article by a very experienced central banker who was out of Canada. And he was the former chief economist of the Bank for International Settlements. His name is William White. And what we are really seeing right now is some of the most sophisticated investors and central bankers are really worried about the global economy and the financial instability that they see coming. And so much of it's related to COVID, but the underlying trends were there way before COVID. And it was, what I would just call sloppy government, where the version of democratic capitalism that we have stepped into is every time somebody wants something, we're basically funding it, and we're not paying attention to the deficit and the amount of debt that's being created. And so what we know is eventually you can't borrow more money and real decisions have to get made. And you go from a period of stability and incremental change into much more transformational change. And so that's the backdrop that we're looking at. And at the same time, as we go in and we look at large corporations, which employ so many people in this country, we're seeing a situation where we see that more and more people, either willingly or unwillingly, are going to basically leave large companies. And, just to make this bold forecast again, and we're heavily dependent on Singularity University and the wonderful research that they do, but they basically made a bold call that said half the people working for large companies won't be in 10 to 15 years. And we believe this to be true. And it's a major part of the reason why we started Untapped. And so as we sit here today, on one side, we're painting this rather bleak macro financial picture. But on the other side, I would say to you, the reason we are so committed to this 1099 movement is because when we go in and we look at how people are gifted, when we do these assessments, StrengthsFinder and Colby, and really begin to understand what small percentage of people's talent is being used in business today, we see this huge opportunity. And the other day I was talking to someone and I said, did you know that only 4% of the available car inventory is being used during the course of a day? Only 4%. When you think of the amount of cars that just sit in parking lots or sit in garages, and are not utilized. It's a huge underutilized asset. But when we go in and we really do these assessments with people, we're seeing the same thing, that when we go in and look, maybe only a third of their job really requires their talents. And maybe only 2 or 3 of their top 5 talents are really being used during that 30% window. And so what you begin to see is that there's a huge opportunity for us to end up with a much greater and better productive workforce. And this article, which was written by Mark Diddy on November 16th, 2020, and did an interview with William White, talked about how we have gone for 25 years without real significant productivity increases. And what we would tell you is if we're going to get this right, We're going to get this right because we've gone in and just rethought the whole relationship of people and how they interface in the marketplace and what exactly is the role of large companies and what's the role of this evolving 1099 workforce. So as we sit here today, we're in a pretty good window where people are at least thinking, hey, COVID really kind of shocked me. I wasn't thinking anything like that could happen. And I'm spending a lot more of my work time at home. And I'm beginning to think I might be able to rethink my whole career and my work-life balance and my family priorities and my financial priorities and get them to come together in a whole new way. So it's going to be very interesting because we're going from COVID and I feel out of control or a lack of control into this evolving 1099 nation where individuals become the CEO of themselves, regain this control, and actually can manage their career in just really new and exciting ways. But it starts with a desire for someone to be more. It starts with somebody wanting to bring more value to the marketplace, recognizing that the way that they're being utilized today is just not good enough. And so we're going to see people relaunch their careers in incredibly new ways. So when we talk about 1099 Nation, just a reminder, when you go in and you look at the workforce, and we do this, in all the companies I've worked with, we make a decision about whether somebody's W-2 or whether it's 1099. And 1099 is a freelancer, somebody that's an independent contractor, and it's a different role than W-2. And so when we think about this massive uberization of the workforce, so everybody is pretty much familiar with Uber and how pretty quickly you can go in and get a person to pick you up and deliver you wherever you want to go. Just as an example, I think the other day I used an Uber and was just shocked that somebody was at my front door in 4 minutes. And I essentially got to the airport in very good time. I didn't have to park my car. My luggage came right out of the car and boom, right in the airport. And I went, oh my God, this Uberization is unbelievable. And as we look across broad industry groups, we're saying this is going to happen in more than just the transportation industry down to the airport. And so it's a huge opportunity for employers and employees. And just to give you an example, employers will be able to get the talent on a just-in-time basis when they'll be able to get it when they need it. And frankly, they'll only have to pay for that service, when it's being provided. And it's going to offer significant cost savings opportunities because they'll carry less overhead and they'll have to pay fewer benefits. And what they'll find is that they often will get a greater productivity than they might if somebody was W-2 and basically tied up as a trapped resource. At the same time, we're also seeing incredible opportunities for this for the individual employee. Think about it. You'll have this ability to basically pick and choose, what work that you do. So when we go in and we talk about somebody's gift zone or what they're really good at, and we talk about their passion zone, what they absolutely love to do, and we look at the percentage of the time that they're in those two zones, frequently it's very low. And it also accounts for, the Gallup polls suggesting that 70% of the workforce is disengaged. And so we see this 1099 movement as an opportunity for people to find work that they love and do things that they are very good at much more often. And so we end up with a happier and wealthier workforce. We also end up in a situation where it's much easier, to figure out your career pathing. Instead of a one-size-fits-all corporate career path, you can be much more creative about who you work with and when you work, and you can be very selective about what you do. and you can begin to fit your personal life, your family life, and your work life together in new and different ways. And at the same time, you can price your services based on the changing marketplace and the opportunities that you see. And in many ways, we'll eliminate glass ceilings. We'll eliminate the one-size-fits-all corporate ladder climbing. Many of the power struggles that we see people trapped in, especially when they work for people that they don't enjoy working for, people that might not be multipliers, but really subtractors from their work effort. They have the ability to change out of those relationships with a lot more freedom. The other thing that we're seeing is they have the ability to pick up multiple income streams. And this can be very, very valuable because often when we sit down with someone and we design a growth plan, we find that there's just certain inherent limitations in terms of the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the relationships that they can acquire with one employer. So if they can step into a different role with multiple customers and multiple income streams, it gives them a much bigger ability to go in and to essentially figure out, well, how can I map my career so that I'm growing the fastest that I can and at the same time able to compound what I'm learning. By compound, we mean because I'm spending more time in areas where I'm gifted, then the amount of throwaway goes down as I go from work assignment to work assignment. We're also seeing that the opportunity cost begins to become more and more important, because if I can either do work that fits where I'm gifted and what I love to do, and it'll actually create synergy with future work assignments, that's going to be a lot more valuable, to me than if I go into work that doesn't add long-term value. And so we see a much greater opportunity cost, which we can then get down to zero if somebody transitions into the 1099 workforce. So as a tactical tip, just a reminder, as a 1099er, you open up your LLC, and you do have to make sure that you have appropriate insurance, but you also have this opportunity to expense things that you can't really expense today. So when we look at your ongoing education and your training, buying a computer, things like that, these all become opportunities because frankly, the government's put good rules in place to encourage these kinds of activities. So what we would say to you is the 1099 nation for you? And what we would tell you is you probably won't know until you experiment with it. You try it a little bit. And then you have to ask the question, am I somebody that's self-motivated? Can I see business opportunities and get a door open and rainmake for myself? Am I capable of finding other relationships that could rainmake on my behalf? And am I, craving the autonomy and freedom that a lot of people that enter 1099 nation want? Because what they find is if they are in jobs where they're doing the same thing day in and day out, it just doesn't bring the best in them out. And so we're back to, are you happy working alone or in small teams? And is it possible that maybe just being in a big company isn't the right answer for you? And we talk about this escape from cubicle nation to an independent contractor. There's some great books out there. Pamela Sum has a couple of good ones. And then we also often talk about how your financial planning can go hand in hand with this. I talked to somebody yesterday who's entering 1099 nation for the first time. She just recently got a severance package from her employer. It was not totally unexpected. The revenue lines were soft with COVID, and they gave her a nice, generous severance package, really recognizing the contribution that she had made for years. And at the same time, when we sat down and we talked, there was this incredible opportunity for her to think differently about her IRA assets and she was able to basically, roll over from a 401k into an IRA or from a profit sharing to an IRA. And then she would be able to basically think differently about funding her kids' college. And she was also going to be in a position where we could go in and actually take equal installment payments. And then the beauty of that was once she's up and running and making more money, which we think is very doable 2 or 3 years from now, she'll be in a position that she can create her own self-funded 401k or even a defined benefit plan. So what we find is as you go into being an independent contractor, you just have an incredible array of different things you can also do with your balance sheet and your taxes to take advantage of those opportunities. So the real question we begin to wrestle with is, well, do I launch into 1099 while I'm still employed as a W-2 employee? And what would be the safest and best way to do that? And what I would say to you is it's a different journey almost for everybody. And we have to sit down with them and really figure it out. But that's what we do. And that's why Untapped exists. And that's why we get excited to get out of bed every day, because we help people navigate that change. So if you said, hey, I might be interested in this, we'd say, fantastic. Let's get you through the assessments first so you can really go back and get very, very clear on what you're really good at. It might even make sense to go back and look at some of the performance appraisals that you've had in the past. It always helps to sit down and really identify where you have the most energy. And just a reminder, Colby assessments are all about energy flow and your passion. So getting clear on that helps. And then how do you get to a point where you can basically evolve from it's just a job to it's a career I'm excited about to it's a calling, which is really the best of all worlds because you have unlimited energy to do it. And so the next thing that we do is there's wonderful reading materials that we can walk you through, which talk about all the different industries that are changing and are starting to open up to freelance work or the startup of a small business. And we can go research openings in those areas and help you begin to figure out, well, what kind of income would I make? For the lady I talked to yesterday, absolutely convinced that she can probably make at least 2 to 3 times more than what she's making today. And frankly, I think if she gets the book of clients that she works with right, I think it could even be better than that. I think you can also go back to your current employer in many cases and say to them, hey, I think I could be more productive if I was an independent company. Would you enter into a long-term contract with me if I launched a business? And I'll come off your payroll. You can pay me less. You don't have to pick up my benefits any longer, but we have an understanding that I'm going to work, let's say 10 or 15 hours a week, but I'm going to go out and get other kinds of business where there actually might be more synergy so that as I grow faster and see better ways to help other people, I might be able to help you more also. And then finally, we just map that over to, your growth plan, which is what specific knowledge, what specific skills and experience, what habit, attitudes, and behaviors do we have to put in place so that we really increase the probability of your success. And then finally, we really talk about your financial plan and safety net, because we want to make sure if we're headed to the top of Mount Everest, that we can get to each of the base camps and make sure that we're properly equipped to do this. And so this all comes together using what we call a future focus, which is we imagine it's 3 years from now and life is very good personally, professionally, financially, and we get very specific about what that's going to look like. And then we also talk about the relationship side, because so often if we go out on our own, it gives us the opportunity to rethink who's in our core 10-year relationship set and how do we basically identify them and have really high quality dialogue with them so that there's a mutually supportive relationship out there. So what we're asking people to do on today's call is think about it. Can you spin your current W-2 role into a 1099 role? Serve your employer, find other people that you could work with as well, and reduce the dependency that you might have on a company that might be struggling a little bit, or where the revenues aren't growing, or importantly, where you're not really creating equity value for that company. Because just a reminder, if we aren't creating equity value for a company, then you really have to ask the question, why is this job inside the company, and would everybody be better served if it's outside? So what we're asking you to do is to begin thinking creatively about this. And we always say to you, look, what's your plan to double your worth in the marketplace over the next 10 years so you can double your income and obviously also increase your net worth? And if you don't have that plan in mind today, you probably are going to need some help. And that's why Untapped is here. The other thing that I think it's important to focus on is whenever we talk about the potential of doing other things, we begin to ask the question, are you thinking regularly about the Pareto law? And just a reminder, Pareto is a great tool to help us clarify what we're doing and when we're doing it so that we can get 80% of the benefit for 20% of the time. I know everybody's heard of this before, but the question that I'll ask you is, do you use a daily planner? And what's the process by which you go in and really think every day, am I getting the 80 for the 20? For many people, we do suggest you take a look at the Michael Hyatt planner or Franklin Covey planner, because I think this brings much greater discipline to what you're doing when we talk about the 80 for the 20. The other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that your planner does a good job of looking at your annual goals and also looks at your unique abilities and your core values, because that's where you're going to add the most value. Frequently in this discussion, we'll also go in and look at a concept called the 4 freedoms, which was introduced by Dan Sullivan. And just a reminder, so often you make trade-offs between your freedom of money, your freedom of time, your freedom of relationships on who you're spending time with, how often and how long, and finally life purpose. And so you need to really go in and start to look at those trade-offs. But so interesting, of all of those, the freedom of money is the most important, because having enough cash flow will then give you the flexibility to really change how you use your time and what relationships you're in and what life purpose that you're serving. As I sit here today, I've taken a pretty big leap of faith. I just took a company that I started almost 20 years ago, and I just exited. And I have a degree of freedom that I never imagined possible 20 years ago when I started the company. But this has given me the flexibility and the balance sheet that I need to go start doing something, with Untapped. And I'm so excited about it because it allows me to help people in a whole unique way. Because to my knowledge, nobody in the financial industry is really out there today helping people figure out, how do I double my value in the marketplace? Not only once, but 2 or 3 times. So again, we're back to, how do we get out of the W-2 coma? We're going to challenge everybody on this call today as their New Year's resolution to consider, how do I get out of my W-2 coma? By W-2 coma, it means I basically go to the office and I have a well-defined role and I do what somebody else tells me what to do, and I don't think. And what we're saying is, hey, break that mindset, really become the CEO of you, really ask the question, am I using all the things I'm really, really good at? And am I using them a majority of the time? And if I'm not, what can I do to gain much greater control over my career, my life, my finances, and pull this together in a whole new way? And so what we'll say to you is, don't compromise. Don't give up. Have really high standards, value yourself, and make sure that you're really in your gift zone where you're passionate. Okay, so are you interested in joining 1099 Nation? We really hope that you are. And what we would say to you is we've got regular podcasts. You can find those on the website. You can join us weekly for Facebook Live. And even more exciting, we have self-learning modules. There's an e-learning program for Untapped, and then finally, we are trying to build community here. We think this is mission critical that we build a community that learns from each other as we all get life experience heading down this path. And so that's what the Untapped movement is all about. And, just to bring it back home, when you think back, and it was over 100 years ago, but a significant number of people worked on the farm. And I assure you that the government back during that period of time never tracked unemployment. People did not have jobs the way we think about them today. And so what we see is a great transformation that's going to come. And at the same time, I know it was very, very scary for these farmers to leave their families and their farms and their way of living and try new things. But if you look at the U.S. economy today and the great things it's accomplished, it never, ever would have happened if we had not left the farm. And so what I would say to you is, even though elements of this are scary and we don't like the macroeconomic picture that's coming our way right now, I will tell you, when you figure out where you're gifted and you feel really good about how you're going to add value and you're growing, it brings a whole new life back to you. And so, live your life untapped, and we're here to help in any way you need us. Hey, it's been a delight to have you with me today. I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to our podcast. And as always, send us in comments, questions, anything that we can do to help. We're here to serve, and just hope you have a wonderful holiday season as we go into the new year. And be patient. It'll probably take a little bit longer for COVID to sort itself out, but take advantage of this unique period of time and ask the question, should I be in 1099 Nation? Thanks again. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks again for joining us today. If you liked this episode, please subscribe, rate us, write a review, and visit us on our website, livelifeuntapped.com. Now, go live your life untapped.